I'm standing in the northeast corner of the precinct boundary. So what do I mean by that? Okay, every religious institution had to have some defining wall or boundary around it, simply to demarcate it from the surrounding area. Behind me are part of the fields of what would originally have been the landholding of the Friary, and in fact we've excavated ditches out there that show that they were originally medieval in date. This is a very prominent ditch, and there's a bank on my left and a bank on my right, so it was a double banked ditch. We're standing at the southern end of the site, and in fact the boundary between Blackfriary and the town is behind me. That wall, which we reconstructed from actually the rubble of the Friary itself, partly demarcates that boundary, and our wildflower bank on it is a nod to the gardens that would have been here. As I said, it looks like that boundary went out of use quite early on. We know that because we excavated a portion of it up there, but strangely enough, there were burials either side of the ditch, because also on this southern side of the site is the cemetery of Blackfriary. However, finding a burial on the north side of the ditch was not a surprise. Finding two burials on the south side of the ditch, effectively within the town but outside the Friary, was odd. Even though that boundary went out of use, what is interesting is that it never lost its significance as demarcating the town from outside, and today that is still the administrative boundary of the town. So in reality, we are actually standing outside the administrative limits of the town of Trim. When we were doing some work to further examine the town boundary, we found the remains of what may be a stone pad for a postern gate. What's a postern gate? It would be a gate put into a town wall or a boundary that would allow essentially people on foot through, rather than vehicles. And it was possibly the means of access that the friars had to go directly into the town, and that the people in the town had to go directly into the Friary, instead of having to leave the town via the Athboy Gate and come around from the Kells Road. So this would have made a direct connection between the Friary and the town. The Friary being outside the town allowed the friars to access the people in the countryside and the town equally. So turning to look north, we can see that there's a space between where the Friary buildings would have been and where the precinct boundary was. And we realised that that space was subdivided into essentially 4 compartments, suggesting strongly that there were gardens in that area, which would have been common in friaries. All institutions, religious institutions, people in their households even, at that point in time, had to be self-sufficient, insofar as was possible. And while the friars begged for their bread, begged for money, they were given land, so of course they made use of that. They had some farmland, but they also had these gardens, and we believe that it was common for the gardens to be used in a certain way. So there was a space that was both an orchard and a cemetery for the brothers in the monastery. That may have been the case here. And the next space might well have been some form of flower garden to provide both a contemplative space but also flowers for the altars, because the Dominicans had great devotion to God but also to Our Lady, and the altars were always decorated. The next compartment would have been a kitchen garden, providing vegetables and herbs for the kitchen. And the last one, we believe, may well have been for medicinal herbs, because there is evidence further north of a possible building that may well have been an infirmary, because they knew enough in those days that when people were sick, you separated them out so that infection was minimized. And in fact, there's quite a bit written about this and the need to preserve space for those who were sick from those who were healthy. So it's a conjecture at the moment, but we do hope to do further excavation there. We managed to do excavations within the gardens and confirmed that the banks that these subdivisions are divided by were earthen banks, and that they overlay some earlier features. We were able to do this excavation as part of our community work funded by the Heritage Council through the Irish Wooltads Network, and we hope to resume those kinds of works in future years, because working with community people who come as volunteers is a terrific aspect to our work here at Blackfriary and really enjoyable work.